Hi everyone, Alexandra Jupiter returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the 1st to the 7th of February 2021. I hope you're all doing well. Got some really great news to bring you this week. So let's just check in with where we are as usual in the introduction. We've now got Mercury turned retrograde this weekend in the sign of Aquarius. So Mercury will now be retracing the steps that he's made in the last few weeks since around about the middle of January, going back over that area of our chart and anything that he's kind of come across between then and now, giving us the opportunity to just go back and have another look at things, review things, refine things, but always from a slightly different perspective. You know, this isn't a linear process. So it's not a case of, going along in a straight line and then going back along that same straight line and then forward again. It's more of a circular process, like a spiral, really, which, resonates absolutely with the progress that we make through life. In actual fact, not being this linear process from birth to death, but more of a spiral of revisiting similar themes and similar patterns in this circular way that we do, but it's slightly removed from the first time around so that we can get a little bit of a different perspective on things. And that's really what Mercury wants. He wants us to take, with the retrograde here, we're trying to get a different take on things, a different view on things than we had first time around when he went over this area of the chart, so that we can see things that we might have missed, so that we can take a slightly different approach to things. That's the whole purpose. So it's going back over the same area of the chart, but with a different kind of view of things that are occurring there, so that he can make some change, because essentially that's the whole purpose of this. So we have just Mercury retrograde now, along with the nodes. That's kind of normal. Pretty much everything else is going in direct motion. We have quite a lot of energy now building up in Aquarius, and this is a theme that we're going to explore more as we go forward. Last week, probably the main background influence that we've had for some time, that square that we've had building into from Neptune to the nodes of the moon, that peaked last week. So where this is now, where it's been coming together for a period of months, building up in intensity, and we've experienced and witnessed the influence of Neptune in hard aspect, in terms of, our connection to where we're coming from and where we're going collectively, has really been challenging our sense of reality. What is true? What is real? What's reliable? There's been so much confusion, so many differing opinions, that nothing seems reliably solid. Nothing seems clear. And this has certainly been an influence that we've been able to identify in the larger scheme of things playing out. Delusion, illusion, false news, disinformation, all of these things really having a profound impact on all of us. And to some degree or another, depending on what's happening in your chart, you may be experiencing this on an even more personal level, particularly if you have Neptune, making this transit across one of your angles, the angles of the charts, perhaps. And whilst I just mentioned that, I'm running a Zoom class this Friday. If you really, really want to get the most out of my astrology forecasts, and you want to understand, how to apply this to your own personal chart, that is the session for you. So I'll put a link in the comments box so that you can sign up to that. So this is now separating. Okay, so it's come to its peak moment, and over the next couple of months, it's separating, or it's kind of like when the moon is waning, and it's then our opportunity to kind of integrate what we've witnessed, and, pick it apart and understand it, and come to some kind of the moral of the story. What was the moral of the story that we've all been through with this strong effect of Neptune and its impact on all of us? So that's kind of moving more into the background now, increasingly as time moves on. And it's being replaced, really, arguably, the strongest background influence that we have going on now, which is the most potent aspect of 2020 is this square aspect between Saturn and Uranus, okay, in these fixed signs of Aquarius and Taurus. Now, this aspect is going to be increasing in strength between now and the time that it first goes exact, because it's going to happen 3 times this year. The first exact square takes place on February the 17th. So now we're into February, we're really, really starting to feel this and witness it around the world. You know, the Uranian need for freedom, for independence, for change, radical change, and movement, progress, you know, moving forward, is really, really in battle with Saturn's need to comply with things staying the same in a way. You know, Saturn likes tradition. Saturn doesn't like change. Uranus is all about change. So Saturn wants to maintain the normal way of doing things. It wants to retain the status quo. It's this push to get back to normal. And as we can see, these two are really at odds with each other, because to some extent that's not going to be possible. Uranus over there is saying, look, there has to be fundamental change. So we're never, you know, going to be able to go back to how things exactly were. And there's a huge amount of frustration that's being caused by these, they're at loggerheads essentially, and both in fixed signs mean, you know, these are not places that accept change easily. So wherever these signs are in your chart, Aquarius and Taurus, these really are going to be, for want of a better term, the battlegrounds. Really, whatever planets or angles you have there, that's going to be where you're witnessing the most frustration of where you're trying to bring about change or progress or greater independence or freedom or liberation from something that's holding you back or causing you to stay stuck in an old energy that's had its time. You know, it's just meeting all this resistance of Saturn that's blocking and creating barriers to that movement forward. And I talked about this a fair amount in the video that I put out for covering the whole of the year. So that might be a good thing just to tap into and refresh your memories a little bit on the Saturn Uranus stuff. So that's really going to be the predominant feature in terms of the mood music that's going on in the background. So I'm sorry to say, yes, we can anticipate an increasing amount of frustrated energy. And I'm sure, you know, we've all experienced this in recent days, certainly since last week's full moon, of people really getting to the limit of how much they can tolerate. You know, Saturn is about tolerance. Saturn is about patience. Saturn is about being responsible and being grounded and taking the long view and all of these things. And Uranus is just like, enough already, you know, tearing its hair out. So yeah, that's the mood music. So, and yeah, obviously then we also have going on in Aquarius, the Mercury retrograde as well. So that's going to be taking place over this first peak of the square between Saturn and Uranus, and that's going to be really important because that's going to be pulling us back into areas where we've already seen that frustration and those tensions building up. politically as well, with Jupiter's involvement there. Issues around politics and around the law and around international travel in particular are going to be the hot topics that Mercury's going back over and unpicking, or having another look at, or trying to change something or adjust something. So as we move forward, then essentially it's just more emphasis on Aquarius, because today, Monday, the 1st of February, Venus now joins up and creates the fifth. A 5 is a Venus number anyway, which is quite a nice synchronicity. The 5th astrological body there in the sign of Aquarius. So we have a stellium now, a group of planets, and this is just an increase of that influence of the Aquarian vibe. And there'll be even more, which is quite exciting and rare. So what is the Aquarian vibe? Well, Aquarius is also known as the water bearer. You know, if you're familiar with some of the symbology of the zodiac signs, essentially Aquarius is a human, which is rare of all of the zodiac symbols and signs. It's Aquarius actually features a human being. It's a representation of humanity and of the tribe, the species that we all belong to. And that water bearer, you know, it's a human man holding a jug of water that he's collected, and he's distributing it. He's sharing it with the rest of humanity. And it's a representation of, you know, the individual doing things for the greater good. And this is going to be a huge part of where the frustration is. Saturn is demanding that we make sacrifices, personal sacrifices, and we specifically saw this with the square to Mars in Taurus, when all that fired up. You know, that it's demanding a personal sacrifice. Mars just wants what I want. I need my needs to be met, and everything must revolve around me. You know, that's the kind of the Martian impulse. And Saturn saying, well, sorry, honey, it's not all about you. Your actions have a consequence on the greater tribe, on the community at large. And we are in this process of trying to establish the right balance. And this is where Venus is going to help, because, of course, Venus is all about balance. She wants to bring harmony. She wants to bring fairness. She rules Libra. And in fact, today also, the moon has ingressed into her sign of Libra, which is really helping us to tune us in to this, this Venusian vibe of, okay, let's find some balance here. Let's get things working so that everyone's needs are met to some extent in a fair way that is sustainable going forwards. So that's where the Saturn aspect comes in. So Saturn's arrival on the scene, it's reactivating today the part of the chart where we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction at the great conjunction, the grand conjunction of the winter solstice this year, when Saturn and Jupiter came together and they started this new exciting 20-year cycle. Venus comes along and she's leaving her little impression on that place now as well. A little bit more grace, you know, a little bit more sweetness and softness. She's going to just soften some of the hard edges of this square aspect that's been happening, and try to bring a little bit more of an equilibrium into things. So I'm really, really pleased that we have Venus on the scene now. I'm hoping very much that we can all tap into her and really just consider Venus, you know, love. What would love do here? What would love say about this situation? You know, what's fair, what's balanced, what's just? So yes, reactivating the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in square to preparing to square Uranus and Mars over here, and conjunct with each one of these other planets that are already in Aquarius. So Venus is going to have a busy old time in the next few weeks. She's going to meet up with each of these planets one by one, and have her say in matters there. And I'm sure we'll all be glad of what she has to bring us. So it's going to be an increase in a desire. We're going to feel an increase in our desire for balance, for harmony. Connection is something else that Venus really represents. And in Aquarius, this is really an increased desire to connect with friends and social groups. And obviously, certainly for those of us in the UK and other areas of the world that are still in lockdown, quite severe lockdown, that's going to be a source of great frustration, because there's such a limit on how that's possible. But Venus is creative energy as well. So if we can pour some of that frustration into a creative outlet, then that's really going to help us. And also a little bit of creative problem solving with the Mercury retrograde in the background there. This might be a kind of a push to say, right, okay, I can't, go out to my Pilates group or my book, my book group, or go to the pub, or go to my dance class, or whatever it is that I do to have my social connection. I may not be able to do that at this time. So how can I creatively come up with something that facilitates an increase in connection? And I think that's going to be a beautifying, or an increase in grace, or an increase in the desire for grace and beauty within the online world. Uranus is the digital realm. And that has been the battleground right now because of the lack of other outlets. So where there's been a lack of outlet for people to air their frustrations, to air their views on how things are going, it's all kind of been dumped in the online world. Equally so, the good stuff can find its outlet there as well, the stuff that we want more of. So let's try and use this Venus going through Aquarius to bring a little bit more balance and harmony and creativity into the digital world, and those few avenues that we actually have for connection. And I actually think that that's going to, the transit of Venus through Uranus is again going to remind us of just how important the online world is. It's essentially, it's a tool for us. It's a neutral thing. It will be shaped however we use it. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's a completely neutral thing, and it'll be whatever we make it. So Venus here is saying, come on, let's make this a source of good. Let's make this a source of pleasure, because we all need a lot more pleasure right now to just balance out some of the hardness. So that's the big news really for Monday. And as I say, the moon shifting into Libra, again, just helping us to feel a little bit more of that need for balance and a bit need for the Venusian influence in our life. Okay, so moving into Tuesday then, and the moon, as she continues her journey through Libra, you'll see that essentially she's going to be making a trine aspect to everything in Aquarius one by one, right? Each of the planets one by one, she's going to be moving into trine with, as she deepens and pulls us further into the energy of balance, the energy of partnering, and having, having another part of ourselves that will reflect things back to us, as we do in relationship. So the increase for connection. So yeah, as we move through Tuesday then, we've got this continuation of the moon through Libra. Trining basically just means that these planets are going to speak to each other very easily. So there's going to be a very distinct and different kind of hit of energy as she moves past each one, essentially. I mean, first, of course, is Venus, because she's early on in Aquarius, but then Saturn, Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury. So 10 a.m. on Tuesday, we'll have the Sun and the Moon in their trine. And this is, you know, these two are probably going to have the most impact on us. And again, this is really helping us to find a little bit more equilibrium. The Sun being our, you know, our will, our rational desires to make things happen. And the Moon is our emotional, sensitive inner world. So when these two are connecting in this way, very easily, it's good teamwork. It means that, you know, our inner and outer worlds, the rational and the irrational sides of us, the male, female, yin, yang, however you want to look at it, it's working in harmony, really, really easy together. Good teamwork going on. So Tuesday really gives us that opportunity to really just bring some more peace back into the situation, certainly on a personal level. Then later on in the day, on Tuesday, as she continues, let me just find sextile. So as she deepens into Libra, what we're going to have then is she will then start to trine the North Node of Destiny down there in fellow air sign Gemini. And that's going to automatically give us a sextile then to the South Node up there in Sagittarius. Okay, so this is really kind of tuning our receptivity in. I mean, think of the Moon essentially just as a big reflector up there, you know, up there in space, in the sky. She's just essentially, she's capturing the energy that's reaching her from all of the planets and nodes and points, and then kind of reflecting that down to us here on the Earth. Okay, so at this point, she's going to be really capturing the energy of her own South Node and North Node and just tuning us into that and saying, okay, where are we on this journey of making a conscious decision to tap into lessons of the past, hard work that we've already had to go through, and that's allowed us to develop some tools, to develop some wisdom. And absolutely up there in the sign of Sag, you know, what wisdom have we already created from challenges in the past around our beliefs, around our philosophies and ethics, around politics, and around connection to other parts of the world. You know, the pros and cons of globalization, essentially. Our world is a much, much smaller place now than it used to be. So we've had lots of experience of this, and we're now being called to say, can we just remember, please, some of those lessons so we don't have to repeat them, and so that we can use them to inform how we move forward into our future. You know, our destiny is calling us, and we need to really be conscious of getting the balance right as we move forward. You know, and that means, you know, remembering that there's both the lunar nodes involved here. It's not just all about the future. We've got to remember our connection to the past and past lessons and past experiences. So harmonizing, influencing our need to look at the bigger picture of our destiny as informed by our past lessons. So apply that to your personal life, obviously, as well as what's going on collectively. As we move then into Wednesday, all eyes are on the Sun as far as I'm concerned. As someone who increasingly, as I get older and arguably wiser, I guess that's a matter of opinion, I don't know. I increasingly follow the natural wheel of the year, the pagan wheel of the year, as it's called. And 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 3rd of February, is the point of Imbolc. Now, this is the final of the fire ceremonies, the pagan fire ceremonies that our ancients, talking of remembering the lessons of the past and the wisdom of the past from Tuesday, the wisdom of the ancients, they knew they built monuments to capture these very, very important moments in our astrological influences that direct the life down here in the natural world on planet Earth. And so the sun is basically arriving at the exact midpoint of Aquarius. Okay, so if we consider that the wheel of the year or the zodiac chart, however we want to look at it, the final season of the year, this last quarter, because everything starts here and moves in an anti-clockwise direction around. This is the final quarter of the year that we're in. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is winter. And so this is a time of endings, of integrating and releasing and moving into, preparing to move into a fresh new start at the vernal equinox in March. And so when the sun gets to that midpoint, what's known as a cross-quarter day, basically that means we've got more winter behind us than we have in front of us. Yay! I probably, it's probably a little bit disrespectful to winter, but I'm not a fan of winter, I've got to admit, and particularly not here in England and with lockdown and all of the other challenges going on as well. So if you're happy like I am, Wednesday is the day when there is more winter behind us than there is in front of us. And we start then, this is the time of real deep release work. This is when we're bringing the last natural year to a close. So, we have this kind of man-made new year on December the 31st. But it really, in the natural world, the new year doesn't start until, and astrologically doesn't start till the sun ingresses the first sign of Aries. So mark the point. It's a really powerful point energetically and for nature. And from that point forwards, it really is about saying, okay, I've had time now to integrate what I needed to integrate from the spring, summer and autumn of the prior natural year. And now it's a time to start to let go of anything I want to leave behind back into the past, anything that I'm done with, anything that served its purpose, that isn't really helping me to move into the future. So it's really, this really is the best time now to move into that energy of release in any way, cleaning out, ending, wrapping things up, bringing things to a close, however you want to talk about it, death, endings of all kinds. This is the time as the sun moves through the second part of Aquarius and all of Pisces particularly. Powerful point. And I will usually conduct a small ceremony just to mark that and to sort of give, give respect to that place in space and time. And that might be something that you'd like to do too. So where does that bring us to? So yes, that's Wednesday. This again is going to be a different kind of energy with the moon, because the moon is going to have completed Libra by this point, and as of Wednesday will then be in Scorpio. So this is quite intense energy when the moon's in Scorpio, but it does facilitate transformation. And so it's quite a powerful energy to combine with the sun reaching that important part on the solar calendar. This also will prepare or start to move us into the last quarter square of the moon's cycle as well. And that's going to be quite profound. But obviously the first thing that she will do as she moves into the fixed sign of Scorpio is square to Venus, who's just moved into the fixed sign of Aquarius. So this again is going to intensify. This is what Scorpio and Pluto energy do, they intensify. So it's really going to intensify the desire nature, this, oh my God, I've got to have some connection. I've got to have some pleasure. I've got to have some fun. You know, it's really going to wash that up even more intensely. And that's going to stimulate a greater likelihood for self-indulgence, for just kind of caving into cravings of whatever kind, that might not necessarily be a good idea. You know, considering the longer term. So if you can just control those impulses, which I think could be quite powerful at this time, and just try and get back into considering balance and calmness and groundedness. You know, with all of these planets in Aquarius, you know, it's air. So much of our focus right now is what's going on up here. Well, mind and mouth, you know, is the air stuff. It's not very grounded. There's not a lot of energy taking place in the earth signs. So, and what we have in the water signs is just adding sort of an emotive energy to it, but so much mental stimulation going on. I think really we need to focus our efforts on bringing harmony to the mental sphere. But yeah, we might succumb to compulsive, intense desires for pleasure, or making desirable changes. You know, it could stimulate that. You know, the square isn't all bad. It's going to give us a bit of a push to making transformational changes with regards to relationships. You know, saying, you know, it's about time I did something about what's going on in my relationship or my lack of relationship, also my relationship with money. You know, Scorpio is a financial sign, and, you know, with the connection to Venus, that's going to stimulate that. You know, I've really got to transform that area of my life. And any of the signs and houses, therefore, that Venus rules in your life, it's going to be that, yeah, that need to make something happen there. Yeah, and that also applies to the home. With it being the moon, there may be an increased desire then, okay, well, if I can't go out and do my yoga class with my friends and go and have cake afterwards, then I'm going to do some baking at home, or I'm going to redecorate my bedroom, or I'm going to, you know, just try and find a creative outlet. And you can use that to your advantage. If you can feel that frustration and go, okay, I'm not going to let the frustration get the better of me. I'm going to put it into something. I'm going to invest it, Venus, into transforming either my emotional world or my home, or, you know, that kind of thing. So that could potentially be really useful. Moving then into Thursday, that's when we'll get the peak of the last quarter square. So this is where the moon will be moving into considerably less harmonious aspect than with the sun than she was earlier in the week when she was in Libra. So this is going to be taking place at 16 degrees of Scorpio. So the sun will be at 16 degrees of Aquarius, moon at 16 degrees of Scorpio, and it's going to get a little bit more intense as well, because this is actually going to develop a T-square. So the moon will be opposing Mars, and Mars is kind of in the background squaring Sun the whole time. So again, this is going to be a real provocation for the need for the desire nature. The desire nature could really just well take over us all around this time and provoke us to take perhaps some rash and impulsive you know, behaviors or actions in order to get our needs met that really probably aren't well thought out, well considered, and are not something for the longer term. So essentially that's another very, very provocative energy. And it's kind of like a repeat dose of the Leo full moon energy that we had last week that, you know, really, really was quite powerful for a lot of people. If you've got personal planets or angles in any of the fixed signs, you know, this is where the real stress is happening right now. So that's Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. You know, the early and mid degrees of those fixed signs right now. Kudos to anyone who, like myself, is going through some pretty major challenges in those areas of life. This is going to be a flashpoint, so that's the day to focus everything on avoiding tension. You know, there's just no point in getting involved in any kind of tension. It's not going to be helpful. Keeping grounded as much as possible, keeping calm, keeping a state of peace, and just avoiding anything that even has the remotest possibility of stimulating any kind of aggression with the Mars influence there. Or being that person even, you know, that provokes that in others. It can, you know, we've all got a shadow side, and the moon in Scorpio is going to tap us into that. And so if that does come up, it's a brilliant opportunity for you to just witness that and say, oh, okay, you know, this is an aspect of myself that I'd like to bring a little bit of calmness to, a little bit more grace to, a little bit more beauty, you know, all of these Venusian qualities. You know, we can't deal with a problem until we see it. So if a problem does come up, if a shadow aspect of ourselves does come up, then, you know, let's use Venus and say, okay, how can I address this? How can I forgive this and soothe it and comfort it? But ultimately, what can I do to bring greater balance and equilibrium into the situation going forward? The other energy then with Thursday's situation is that Venus is really going to be applying, I'll put a green arrow here just to point it out. Venus is applying to Saturn at this point, and it's really getting quite profound. As of Monday, Venus has been building in, moving through Aquarius and getting closer and closer and closer to Saturn as the week's gone on, building up that frustration around the limitations of pleasure and fun and creativity and connection. And so we're really going to be feeling this even more on Thursday. So that again is going to be something that could explode outwards into our interactions with other people through this T-square on Thursday. So really watch out for that and just recognize, you know, recognize that frustration where there isn't enough pleasure in your life. We've got to, at this point in time, look at the longer term, because Saturn is all about the longer term, and say, okay, you know, I could do something crazy right now that might get me a short-term fix and might get me an immediate hit of pleasure, but long-term there'll be consequences for that. You know, Saturn is karmic. Saturn gives us our lessons. So we don't want to give him anything to give us a lesson about, certainly not a hard one. So the more that we comply with what Saturn wants a little bit, then the more we're going to kind of save ourselves some of the punishments and hardships that Saturn can bring in the form of karmic consequences later down the line. You know, there is a natural law at play. I'm not just talking here about the rules of society, although that very much is a key part of this with Saturn in Aquarius. You know, our duties and responsibilities to the community, to the collective, to all of humanity are absolutely a massive part of what Saturn is doing over the next 2 years in Aquarius. But this is going to get personal. When Venus is alongside. Venus is a personal planet. Saturn is a social planet. So this is going to say, you know, what's my personal part in this picture? Can I sacrifice some of my personal wants, Mars, I want, you know, and say, well, okay, in the long term, it will be better for all of us and everyone will be able to have pleasure and fun and connection if I approach it in a more grounded and responsible and mature way, which is essentially what Saturn energy is. It's just being mature about things, just being grown up about it. So yeah, that's applying then as we move through Thursday, and it will, you know, as we move into Friday is Venus's day. It's the day that she rules. So on Friday we have we have Saturn at 5 degrees of Aquarius and Uranus at 6 degrees of Taurus. So, you know, we're really, really, really starting to intensify into this square energy between them two, with Venus sat on the top as well, making it personal, asking us to look at long-lasting pleasures that benefit all of the society, essentially. So, you know, inequality is going to be a massive feature of Venus in Aquarius. Financial, you know, Venus rules the financial markets and money and all of our valuables in actual fact, and our values themselves. Venus in Aquarius here is going to say, well, you know, where's the equality in the situation here? And I think a part of what we're going to be looking at with Venus's transit through Aquarius is, you know, something that I think we do need to collectively address, which is, you know, the importance, the power, the control, Saturn, that money has over our lives, what influence that has in terms of how much equality and humanitarianism there is out there in our tribe. You know, is there equal access to resources for everybody? Or is that the preserve of people who have the money? Is freedom, you know, the square to Uranus, is freedom something that really is only afforded to those who are wealthy enough to be able to get on a plane and travel and go on holiday, or, you know, take time off work, for example? Is money something that enables our duty and responsibility to the community? So, for example, the people who are in a financial situation where they can't take time off work if they catch coronavirus, or if they're ill with anything else contagious for that matter, if they're under the financial pressures because our system is so unequal that they have no alternative but to keep on working, and potentially therefore have dire consequences, Saturn, on the community at large because of that, you know, what's that saying to us about the amount of influence and control and power that money has? And where do we need to readdress, you know, particularly when Venus meets up with the Mercury retrograde later on in the season, you know, how are we going to readdress that, rethink it? So on Friday, Venus with Saturn is asking us to focus on long-lasting pleasures that benefit all. But the square to Uranus is going to say, but what about now? What about me? I'm frustrated, I'm impulsive, I'm erratic, I'm unstable, and it's likely to provoke an awful lot of frustration where it just doesn't seem fair. You know, I can't tolerate, you know, Uranus is a little bit intolerant, okay? And so that's where the rebellious energy comes from, this, right, that's it, I've had enough, I've reached my point, I'm going to rebel against this. So we'll see this increasing, this frustration increasing. So try and get a strategy in place earlier in the week, if you can, just to prepare for that frustration, because as we get closer to February the 17th, then we are going to see that more and more in ourselves and in other people. And as we find with everything in the community, we are interdependent and interconnected. So we are picking up on what everyone else is feeling, the vibration of other people. Uranus rules higher consciousness and energetics and the vibrational nature of life. And we're all tapped into that. And Uranus really gets straight to the nervous system. You know, it's just going to really increase kind of a stimulated nervous system, which, you know, none of us need that right now. I can't see any way that that's helpful or beneficial to anyone. So prepare a strategy, prepare a loving strategy, Venus, Saturn, for how you're going to stabilize yourself and how you're going to be able to take the longer view. There's one potentiality that I've written down here of how we could use this to our benefit. And again, this is trying to capture the creativity of Venus alongside the Mercury retrograde. In Aquarius, it's quite, you know, Aquarius is a sign of genius and inventions. So this is really maybe going to give us a push to come up with a creative new idea of, you know, how we can address some of these issues that we're facing and are going to continue to face for the rest of this calendar year 2021 and beyond. Yeah, you know, as Uranus and Saturn continue to create these squares. So, you know, there's the square in February, square in June after that, and there won't be too much of a dip in between the two, and then another square in December. So this is the predominant feature. We're going to be dealing with this clash, you know, all of this year and beyond into next year. So, you know, it's a really good idea for us to use Venus's influence at this time to say, can we come up with a creative solution of how we are going to solve this problem? Because we're going to need to, you know, we're really going to need to. And I think we can. And I think, you know, it's these pushes that we get. It's only when we're under enormous pressure that we come up with some of the greatest treasures. You know, we talk about Venus as things that we value. Some of the greatest inventions, some of the greatest treasures of humanity come under great pressure. I mean, just think of diamonds, you know, and that's a Saturnian thing in itself. It rains diamonds on the planet of Saturn. And that always reminds me that the Saturn pressure, the heaviness, the restriction, the earth is, you know, taking coal, taking raw carbon that's buried under the earth and applying pressure and applying a lot of time, and it transforms it into this thing that we prize so highly for its beauty, the diamond. And we've got to kind of take that approach to this situation that we're in this year and say, yep, we're going to be frustrated as hell. It's going to keep cropping up. There's going to be so many limitations on us. How can we come up with a way that we can, you know, push that into forging something that's so incredibly beautiful and such an enduring beauty? Was there ever more of an enduring beauty than a diamond? You know, they're pretty indestructible things. You know, this is where we can use Venus and Saturn together. So let's so on Friday, let's use diamonds as our inspiration. Saturday, then things lighten up a bit because we're out of that quarter square and the moon moves into lovely hope-filled Sagittarius. So we've got a little bit more fire energy, the fire energy and the air energy working together, you know, oxygen breathing, or the air signs breathing oxygen into the flames and making them burn a bit brighter. So that's going to give us a little bit more warmth, a little bit more hope. Sagittarius, sorry, is all about the future, and just rekindling our focus on that there is something ahead of us that's good. There's light at the end of the tunnel when the moon is in Sagittarius. So essentially what's going to be happening, the entire journey of, sorry, I'm trying to find the sextile, there it is. The entire journey of the moon through Sagittarius, one by one, she is going to be sextiling each of the planets in Aquarius. So similar to earlier in the week when we had the trine, this is slightly more stimulating energy with the sextile, actually. So this is something where we can really, it's not just going to come super easily to us if we just have an intention to make these parts of our life line up. Then, you know, we're meeting it halfway, and that sextile is really going to, it's kind of like giving us a little bit of the stimulation of a square with a little bit of the ease of the trine. So one by one throughout Saturday, we'll start to feel the lift in mood. You know, the mood is kind of heavy when the moon's in Scorpio anyway, but with the aspect of the sun with the quarter square, that's potentially going to be, you know, quite heavy. So moon in Sag lightening up the load again. She's going to go through the whole stellium throughout Saturday, and the last connection she will make at about 6 a.m. on the Sunday morning. So overnight she'll be going through this as well. Until about dawn on the Sunday, she will sextile Mercury in retrograde. So that's going to be really interesting information for you to pick up on intuitively. All right, the moon is our waters, it's our intuition. So see how your feelings about the future and about where we're all headed, and about hope in general and optimism, how that is connecting to Mercury retrograde. What are the things that that Mercury retrograde is drawing us back into at this time to have another look at. So as we move further deeper into Sunday the 7th then, so we start the day with the Moon Mercury sextile in the very early hours. And then the moon is going to continue the journey through Sagittarius, passing the nodes of the moon as she moves through. And then around 8 p.m. in the UK, she'll then ingress into the sign of Capricorn. So 8 p.m. on Sunday, the moon moves back into Capricorn. It's going to bring things down to earth a little bit more. Not necessarily a bad thing, I would argue, at this point in time. You know, we could do with a little bit more earth energy. Let me just move Mercury back there. But yeah, moon in a Saturnian house is kind of a little bit more, it can feel a little bit harder, especially after the optimism and brightness, you know, the sunny kind of lands of Sagittarius. So it's going to be increasing the Saturnian vibes. It's going to be tuning us more in to Saturn's influence. So his part in the square down to Uranus in Taurus here. Let me pop that one back on. Yeah, we're going to be picking up more on the Saturn element of that, which is, you know, the frustrations of isolation, actually, with the moon in Capricorn. Capricorn energy tends to prefer to be a little bit isolated, a little bit cut off. Capricornians tend to, or can often do better on their own. And so there can be, and Saturn itself, you know, when we consider the rings around Saturn as being those boundaries of being that kind of, I need some, you know, boundary around myself that separates me from everybody else. But when the moon's there, you know, that can make us feel isolated and separated in ways that perhaps we don't want to be. And again, that's going to emphasize this Saturn square Uranus element here, with Venus alongside Saturn saying, oh, I need some pleasure, I need some connection to my tribe, you know, and just those hard feelings of loneliness that can really come with Moon in Capricorn. So be prepared for that one. Saturn at this point is now at 6 degrees of Aquarius, so has actually arrived at the degree, the same degree as Uranus. So really, this is really starting to get quite profound now, the square aspect. I'd like to leave you on a good note, so I will. You know, it is a bit of a mixed bag, but Venus really is throwing us a rope this week, and she will continue to do so as we move forward. As we move into next week then, and certainly by Sunday, she's starting to pull away from Saturn. She's starting to separate from Saturn, and she's moving towards Jupiter up here. So, oh, whoopsie. Sorry. So we're going to have a Venus-Jupiter conjunction to look forward to. So as we wrap up the week, if we're feeling some of the heavy vibes of the Moon in Capricorn and some of the Saturnian stuff, then take heart. Venus is, you know, these are the two benefics, Venus and Jupiter. So Venus has now left behind the hardness and the hardships and the lack of Saturn. She's got her sights now set on Jupiter, which is way nicer. It's expansive, it's optimistic, and there's a lot more opportunity and generosity of spirit. So we've got that's just over the horizon to look forward to. And next week we're going to have a really exciting new moon. So we will have everything that we already have going on in Aquarius this week, but also we're going to have the moon there too, making 6 different planets all in Aquarius at the same time, bringing us a very powerful new moon that we can really all align with. So I will be back, of course, as always, to talk us through next week's energy. But I just wanted to put that out there at the end, just to make sure you know there is some real good stuff coming. There's lots to look forward to. Yeah, there is some hope. There really is. So yeah, as always, if this has been useful to you, please give me a like, a love, a share. Make sure you subscribe. It really does help me to move the channel forward. Have a beautiful week. The real focus needs to be on recreating fairness, balance, harmony, equilibrium in whatever way we can, and coming up with a strategy of how we can create pleasure that lasts in the long term, and that brings that there's equal opportunity to access for all of the community. It's not the selfish desires and immediate wants, but we've really got to sort of try and think long term. Hope that's been useful. Lots of love. Stay safe, stay well, stay connected, and find your peace. Lots of love. Bye.